Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we are 2 days away, slightly more than 2 days, I guess, away from the 2024 NFL Draft. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I've gotten all the prospect videos out. I've gotten the ranking videos out. The big board's been out for a while now, so I feel like I'm ready. We've got 2 days left, and I'm ready. And I feel like from a individual micro draft perspective, I have done everything that needs to be done. I am as prepared as I can be in my situation. So I want to take this video to now that we're 2 days away, try to size things up league wide and evaluate how the things that are happening in the NFL league wide right now could affect the Seahawks. Because obviously, when you're picking 16th, every team that picks ahead of you affects the pool of players that you will be picking from. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're hearing ahead of us and what we're feeling ahead of us. I will say, though, listening to what people say is not a very good idea right now. By people, I mean people who work for teams or people who are listening to people who work for teams, because there is tremendous incentive to be very deceptive right now. So I don't really want to get too much into rumor and innuendo, because that probably isn't going to do anybody any good right now. That's just they're saying a bunch of stuff, and will it have any correlation to what they do on draft day? Who knows? That's really hard to figure out. First, though, I want to say we have one more pre-draft Hawks Nest show. It's going to be tonight at 7. So tune in tonight. We're going to talk about safeties, and then we'll be done. We'll be ready to just roll into the 2024 draft. We will be doing after shows on Thursday, Friday, and then probably do a final after show on Sunday. But tonight is going to be the final pre-draft show for me and Brandon. So tune in. And tomorrow night, sometime after dinner, probably sometime around 7:30, maybe 8, I'm going to be doing a mock draft-a-palooza, a mock draft party, mock draft simulation frenzy. So be prepared for that. Basically, I'm just going to turn the stream on and go through a bunch of different mock draft simulations across the internet, see what we can come up with, and just try to get a feel for things going into the actual draft. So that's basically the schedule for the next couple days here on this channel, and that's most of what I have, right? There isn't that much else I can go into that hasn't already been discussed. So with that being said, I do want to talk about what's going on ahead of us, a few different angles here. So I think the big hammer that is looming over this first half of the first round, these 15 teams, well, technically 14 teams, but 15 picks ahead of us, is quarterback. What is going on with the quarterback position? So, looking at it, you've got the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots. Those are three teams that we can say with basically 100% certainty need and will draft a quarterback. It is possible that a team like New England trades out of the pick and goes later in the first round, but even if they do that, they may still want a quarterback. They'll just want a different one than the one that is available to them when their pick comes up. So the general feeling that the league is giving off right now is that Chicago will take Caleb. I think that's pretty much set in stone now. And Washington's going to take Jaden Daniels. There seems to be an overwhelming Jaden Daniels at number 2 vibe. And then at 3, New England is either going to take Drake May or they're going to trade down with a team like Minnesota, and Minnesota would take Drake May. So either way, seems very, very, very likely that quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3 in this draft. When you go beyond that, you have the Giants, who are a wild card here. They could take a quarterback. If I had to guess, I'd say they won't, but they're certainly on the table for it. You have the Vikings, who I just mentioned as a trade-up candidate. If they don't trade up, they might want a quarterback anyway. They might want a different quarterback down at 11. And then you have the Broncos, and then you have the Raiders. Those are 7 teams, basically, that need a quarterback or probably need a quarterback that could conceivably draft one in the first round in this upcoming 2024 draft. So there are 6 quarterbacks that are of the caliber, of the hype, of the status of maybe going in the first round. So there is a really strong opportunity here, and even though what the Falcons did kind of threw a little bit of a curveball into these plans, I still think it's very possible that all 6 of those quarterbacks are gone by the time the Seahawks pick, because these quarterback needy teams decided to make it happen near the top. So I don't believe there's a 7th quarterback that's going to elevate himself at the last second. Like, Spencer Rattler's not suddenly going to be a top 15 guy. That's goofy. But the point is, Bears, Commanders, Patriots, let's skip the Giants for now. Let's say the Giants are stuck one more year with Daniel Jones. Let's just say that's the case. Okay, then you've got Vikings, Broncos, Raiders. That's 6 teams, 6 quarterbacks. So even if you take the Giants out, it seems to me very reasonable to expect that the big 6 quarterbacks are all gone by pick 13. And honestly, if the Giants do decide to go ahead and take that quarterback, then they could all be gone by 12, because you get down to Denver at 12 and there's only one of the first round caliber quarterbacks left. There's probably going to be tremendous urgency on them to just take it, whoever it is, because their quarterback situation is so bottom of the barrel, and next year's draft is really bad for quarterbacks. They might feel an urgency to do that. I know they traded for Zach Wilson yesterday. I don't think that's going to change their beliefs about their needs this offseason at all. It shouldn't. So, yeah, I would say that that is still very likely going to be the case. So, one way or the other, I feel like there are going to be 6 quarterbacks off the board in the top 15. I don't think that those quarterbacks deserve to go that high, but I think that the circumstances of this draft will dictate it. Beyond that, it seems like there's a general understanding that Arizona will take Marvin Harrison Jr. unless he's not there. If New England shocks the world and decides to pick Marvin Harrison at 3, then Arizona, I mean, they probably go neighbors, right? But it seems likely that Arizona gets Marvin Harrison. And going down the list here and trying to dissect things and pull things apart, the Chargers, to me, are the first important swivel of this draft from the Seahawks' perspective, because the Chargers are very likely going to do one of 2 things. They're going to take an offensive lineman, Joe Alt, a.k.a., or they're going to take a receiver. I suspect they're going to take a receiver, but if Marvin Harrison just came off the board, maybe there's some motivation on their part to just say, let's just get the best offensive lineman, try to build up this wall in front of Herbert while we still have him playing his peak football, and just figure out the rest from there. I know that they've aggressively drafted offensive linemen in recent years. I know they already have a starting left tackle, but this is something that they could figure out down the road. But if the Chargers do decide to take the best receiver available, which would probably be Neighbors, then that is probably going to motivate the Giants to want to jump on Odunze at number 6. I know what I just said about quarterback stuff. I still think the Giants are more likely to take a receiver than a quarterback, mostly because I think the quarterbacks that are worthy of going number 6 overall will be gone by the time the Giants pick. And I think the Giants, whatever may be said about guys like Penix, Nix, McCarthy, I think there is definitely going to be some subset of this group of front offices that looks at those guys and goes, I don't see it, especially not in the top 10. So you've got basically a run on 3 quarterbacks at the top of the draft, and then you've got probably a run on 3 wide receivers with your next 3 picks. And then you get down to 7 Tennessee, I have a hard time figuring this one out. If there's a receiver left, if there's a top 3 receiver left at 7, I'm sure Tennessee would be thrilled about that. As it stands, I imagine this is probably where Joe Alt probably goes. And if Joe Alt had already went to a team like, say, the Giants or the Chargers, then the Tennessee Titans would jump on whichever receiver is left. So then you have Atlanta. I think they're going to take the best defensive player available, so that would be Dallas Turner. Then you have another Bears pick here. Do they take somebody like the other LSU receiver, I think Turner, to pair with Caleb? Do they take a guy like a Fashanu? That is something that could actually have a downwind effect on the Seahawks. But if you assume the Bears take a stud receiver to try to give Caleb the most to play with, then you've gotten through these first 9 picks only drafting 1 offensive lineman. You've drafted 3 quarterbacks, you've drafted 4 receivers, and then you drafted an edge player in Dallas Turner. So that would be a pretty ideal setup for the Seahawks getting down to pick 10. And pick 10 is where I think the next big pivot point is for the Seahawks. We can reasonably assume the Jets are going to want offensive linemen because they're trying to protect Aaron Rodgers, and their failure to protect Aaron Rodgers undid their potential Super Bowl push last season for all they know. So here's my question. If they're sitting here at pick 10 and they're thinking offensive line, and their options are Troy Fautanu and Olu Fashanu, who do they favor? If they favor Fashanu, then there's definitely a window opening for the Seahawks to see Fashanu slip to them. But if the Jets prefer Fautanu, whose stock has been rising lately, compared to Fashanu, whose stock is dropping, then obviously that comes off the board. I don't know if Fashanu would even be all that interesting to the Seahawks because he is a pure tackle. And that changes things for the Seahawks dramatically in terms of what is going to be left when they pick. Because I think Fautanu is a guy that they might view as a must-take if available. Or could the Jets approach this from a different perspective and say, let's get Brock Bowers? There's a name I haven't mentioned yet. There's a name that a team like the Titans could be in on, the Bears could be on, the Jets could be in on. Like, if you're thinking about helping your offense, I still don't expect Bowers to get through all these teams unscathed. I still expect him to go before we pick. So the only question is where. But looking at it, I think the Jets kind of possess the biggest pivot point as it regards the Seahawks. Which offensive linemen do they favor? Or do they not favor any of them, and do they prefer Bowers? Because if Bowers gets past the Jets, then you kind of have the Saints and Colts as being the only other 2 teams here that would reasonably look at him with their first-round pick, I think. These other teams, Vikings, Broncos, Raiders, are going to be preoccupied with quarterback in all likelihood. And if that's the case, then the Saints and Colts would be the only thing standing between the Seahawks and Brock Bowers, which is still my number 1 dream scenario. So, yeah, you get clear of the Jets, then Vikings or Patriots, if the Patriots have traded down here, very likely to be dabbling in quarterback. Broncos, very likely to dabble in quarterback. And then Raiders, you don't hear about them in the same way that you hear about these other quarterback-hungry teams, maybe because they're behind all of them. But if there's one of the top 6 quarterbacks available at 13 to them, I suspect they will probably do something about that. And then you get to, this is where it gets tough, right? The Saints, the Colts. Feels like those 2 teams could do a lot of different things. I don't think Bowers gets through here. Like, I think that if you're the Colts and you have Anthony Richardson there, I think you want to give him somebody like a Brock Bowers to work with. And the Saints, I mean, do they jump on a guy like a Jared Verse, or do they take the offensive lineman that the Jets theoretically passed on? But it's a little bit harder to guess when you get down here. But that is the way I'm seeing the draft shape up in that first half before the Seahawks make their pick. So, purely speculative, but I think 6 quarterbacks go in the top 15. I just think need's going to drive it. I think that we're going to see 4 receivers go in the top 15, plus Bowers. So that's 11. And then I think you're looking at Turner. I think you're looking at Bowers. And then it's just those last 2 guys I'm trying to figure out. Is it Fashanu? Is it Photon? Is it Jared Verse? Is it Quinyon Mitchell, who I didn't even mention going through all that, right? Like, I guess you could have a team like the Raiders just decide, hey, let's go get the best remaining defensive player on the board, which is Quinyon Mitchell. Could a guy like Terrion Arnold sneak in up there? He's being ranked as the best cornerback out there by some people. Just trying to put this all together in my head, but the way I see it, it's starting to come together until somebody decides to just wing a curveball in there and draft J.J. McCarthy number 2 overall, or decides to take Adonai Mitchell in the first 15 picks, or decides to take Laiatu Latu in the first 15 picks and blows it all up. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think about how you feel this draft is starting to shape up. Do you like it for the Seahawks? Do you think this is going to work? All right, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I don't know if there's going to be another video today because, quite frankly, I'm good, you know? I don't have too much else to talk about until something happens. So, when something happens, I'll talk about it. No, I don't consider the taking the pictures down in the hallway thing to be something that happened. But, well, I'll talk about what needs to be talked about when the time comes to talk about it. But if not, see you guys tonight in stream. Safeties, go Hawks, and yeah, let's try to understand this.